for faith and family all across Iowa and all across America. And I want to thank Dr. Ben Carson for those inspiring words and for his friendship. Abraham Lincoln said his only ambition in life was to be esteemed by people he esteemed. And I have to tell you, America is blessed by the steady, principled, faith-filled leadership of Dr. Ben Carson. Would you join me in thanking Ben Carson for all that he means to the life of this nation? We cherish you and Candy so much. Thank you, Ben. Ben and I have got to know each other over the last several years, serving shoulder to shoulder, and a better man I've never known. But Ben does know that the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and it is wonderful to be here with the family leader. And I want to say thanks also to Bob Vanderplatz and his amazing wife, Darla, for all they've done for the cause of conservative and pro-family values here in Iowa and in more than a dozen states across the country. Bob and Darla, for all you've done strengthening families, for all you've done to promote faith and leadership and revival. Can we hear it for Bob and Darla and the family leader team for all they've done? Thank you all for being a part of this vital ministry in the life of the nation. We're so grateful. You know, Bob and the family leader are really emblematic tradition in the United States of America. I mean, even a casual study of the history of this nation shows that people of faith have made the difference throughout our country's history from the very founding of the nation. The robed regiments of the American Revolution, the preachers of revival in our great awakenings, the way that the pulpits of America thundered for abolition of slavery and led the civil rights movement. It has been people of faith, I believe with all of my heart, who have led us toward a more perfect union. And I want to congratulate and thank each and every one of you for being a part of continuing that great American tradition. But it's so good to be here with so many friends, including a man who I thought he was from Minnesota. But he is a man of faith who's been a champion of everything that we hold dear. And he actually was kind enough to bring my sister and my niece down from Minnesota. Would you join me in thanking Mike Lindell and the whole team that's down from My Pillow. Thanks for all you do for people of faith in the conservative cause, Mike. So thanks to all the friends who are here. And speaking of friends, allow me to bring greetings from another friend of mine. A man who I can tell you firsthand has fought to keep the promises that he's made to people of faith, people dedicated to family, people who believe in freedom every single day the last 3.5 years. I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. I don't know if y'all had a chance to see that debate night before last. I'll tell you what, if you ever doubted that we had a fighter in the White House, you don't doubt it anymore. President Donald Trump took our case to the American people, and he took the fight to Joe Biden. And in case you didn't know it, I'm headed to Salt Lake City next week to debate with his running mate. And I promise you, President Trump and I are going to keep on fighting for faith and family and freedom, and we're going to fight 33 days to earn 4 more years in the White House. And we're going to tell our story, and I challenge each and every one of you to do the same. Because we've got an incredible story to tell about what we've accomplished for this country. I mean, the truth is, President Trump has literally kept the promises that he's made to the people of Iowa and all the states so well represented here at the Family Leader. But think about it. 4 years ago, we inherited a military that had been hollowed out by devastating budget cuts. an economy struggling to break out of the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Terrorism was on the rise around the world, and worst of all, we had witnessed 8 years of a steady assault on our most cherished values and liberties. And I'm here to tell you, 3.5 years on from when the people of Iowa said yes to President Donald Trump, I couldn't be more proud to report, not just as your vice president, but as the father of a Marine and the proud father-in-law of a United States Navy pilot, we rebuilt our military. We restored the arsenal of democracy. President Donald Trump has signed the largest increases in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. And we're finally giving our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Space Force the resources and the support that they need to defend this land of freedom. And with that renewed American strength, under the President's leadership, our armed forces have taken the fight to radical Islamic terrorists on our terms, on their soil. Where Joe Biden sent pallets of cash to the mullahs in Iran, President Donald Trump got us out of the Iranian nuclear deal. And I was there when President Donald Trump, without hesitation, gave the order to take out the world's most dangerous terrorist, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But President Donald Trump has put the security of America first. And in our first 3 years, our president also took decisive action to revive the American economy. Where Joe Biden has plans to raise taxes across the board, President Donald Trump has cut taxes for small businesses and large, cut taxes for working families. We rolled back in those first 3 years more federal red tape already than any president in American history. We unleashed American energy. We fought for free and fair trade. And in just 3 short years, businesses large and small created more than 7 million good-paying jobs, including nearly 12,000 jobs right here in Iowa. So it's been about security. It's been about prosperity in these first 3 years. And every step of the way, your president and our administration have stood for the rule of law and the principles we cherish. So I stand before you today. We've seen confirmed more than 230 conservative judges to our federal courts at every level, and I can tell you, they are all men and women who will uphold the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Last week, we paused as a nation to honor the life of service of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But after the memorials were over, President Donald Trump did his duty. The Constitution provides that the president shall nominate judges to the Supreme Court in the event of a vacancy. And President Donald Trump did just that when he nominated a remarkable, principled, conservative woman of amazing intellect and a beautiful family who will uphold the Constitution of the United States to our Supreme Court. He nominated Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Two days ago, I had the privilege of escorting Judge Barrett to the United States Senate, and she's on Capitol Hill all this week, meeting with members of the Senate. We challenged Democrats in the Senate to provide Judge Barrett with a respectful and dignified hearing and to give America the kind of confirmation process the American people deserve. But we have reason to be concerned. You all remember her last confirmation hearing just a few short years ago when she was nominated to the Court of Appeals. During Judge Barrett's confirmation hearing, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee criticized her Catholic faith, saying that, quote, the dogma lives loudly within you. And Hollywood elites have already begun to criticize her and her family for their commitment to their faith. Well, I got news for the Democrats and the Hollywood elites. That dogma lives loudly in me. That dogma lives loudly in hundreds of millions of Americans. And every American who cherishes faith has the right to live and work and worship according to the dictates of our faith and conscience enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. The American people cherish the freedom of religion of every American and every faith, and these attacks on Judge Barrett's faith must stop. The Senate has a job to do, to discharge their duty to advise and consent. And we'll work with any willing member of the Senate to do just that. But I'll tell you, we're going to fill that seat. And Judge Amy Coney Barrett is going to be Justice Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court of the United States. So President Trump has stood for the rule of law. He kept his word to the people of Iowa and all the great states represented here and all of our country. He appointed those principled conservatives to our courts at every level, all the way through Judge Barrett's nomination. And every single day of this administration, President Donald Trump and I have stood without apology for the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement. I think people in the family leader know. Men and women who serve in law enforcement are some of the best people in this country. Now, President Trump and I, like all of you, will always support and defend the constitutional right of every American to engage in peaceful protest. But rioting and looting is not peaceful protest. Burning businesses is not free speech. Violence against innocent civilians or property or law enforcement will not be tolerated, and those who do these things will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, for months, all Joe Biden talked about was peaceful protests. Remember that? An entire summer, as Americans living in our major cities literally watched businesses in their communities burn. Mike, I was just in Minneapolis just a few short days ago. And I traveled into the heart of the city that had been beset by the rioting and the looting and the violence that followed the killing of George Floyd. I spent some time with Flora Westbrook, an extraordinary African-American woman. She started a Flora's Salon 35 years ago. And yet she watched in horror just days after that terrible event as looters moved closer and closer and closer and burned her and her son's business to the ground. But I told Flora, we are with you. The American people are with you, and we're going to rebuild Flora's Salon in Minneapolis. And so we are. You know, the truth is, Joe Biden would actually double down on the policies that have led to violence in America's cities. You know, when you withdraw support for those who serve and protect, I believe that you embolden those who threaten our families and our peace in the streets. Joe Biden actually says that America is, in his words, systemically racist, and that law enforcement has, and I quote, an implicit bias against minorities. When Joe Biden was asked if he'd support cutting funding for law enforcement, he replied, yes, absolutely. And his running mate said again earlier this week that it was time to, quote, reimagine law enforcement. Well, let me make you a promise. Under President Donald Trump, we're not going to reimagine anything. We're going to back the blue. And we're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. President Trump and I know you don't have to make a choice between supporting law enforcement and supporting our African-American neighbors or other minorities in our communities. We have done both and will continue to do both with 4 more years in the White House. Under this president, we've provided resources to hire 4,000 more police officers. This summer, in the wake of violence in our cities, we launched Operation Legend. We've already seen to the arrest of more than 2,500 violent offenders in our major cities. The program itself was named after a 4-year-old boy who was shot and killed in gang violence while he slept in the pillow fort that he and his dad constructed. So we've supported law enforcement, but I couldn't be more proud to be vice president to a president whose policies saw in our first 3 years the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, the highest investment in historically black colleges and universities, 8,000 opportunity zones in every major city attracting investment and jobs, and a president who has fought to let parents in our inner cities choose where their children go to school regardless of their income or area code. So we're going to continue to support law enforcement. We're going to continue to support our African American families with better opportunities, better education, and more public safety. And under President Donald Trump, we're going to have law and order in every city, in every state in this nation for every American of every race and creed and color. So help us God. So we've made incredible progress. But as supporters and friends of the family leader know, and President Donald Trump, you've had a leader who's kept his promises to people of faith, like no other in my lifetime. You know, it's remarkable to think that 4 previous presidents in both political parties had promised the American people and our most cherished ally to take action. But it was President Donald Trump who kept that promise when he moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. And I was alongside the president when the phone started to ring, and he was preparing to keep that promise, Bob. And to say that virtually every leader in the world and every foreign policy elite in Washington, D.C. was against it would be an understatement. I mean, one called after another, didn't they, Ben, that said, don't do it, don't do it. They said that it would make peace less possible, but President Donald Trump believed that it would make peace more possible. The man who wrote The Art of the Deal had the view that if you want to negotiate peace, the first thing you do is you take off the table what's not negotiable. And Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the Jewish state of Israel. And confirming the president's sense, I don't know if you all saw it just a couple short weeks ago, for the first time in 26 years, 2 Arab nations formally recognized the Jewish state of Israel, and we believe there are more on the way. Beyond the strong stand and the keeping of promises, I will tell you, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. President Donald Trump is the most pro-life president in American history. It's true. It's true. On just our 4th day in office, the president reinstated what's known as the Mexico City policy, ending taxpayer funding of foreign programs that provide or promote abortion around the world. And it was this president who earlier this year became the first president since Roe v. Wade to go to the National Mall and address the March for Life in person. We stand with those who stand for life. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and the radical left support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. They're calling for historic increases in funding for Planned Parenthood of America. And after spending an entire career since Roe versus Wade supporting what came to be known as the Hyde Amendment, a great piece of legislation by the late Henry Hyde that prevented taxpayer dollars from being used to pay for abortions in America. Last year, Joe Biden reversed his historic position in support of the Hyde Amendment and now supports taxpayer funding of abortion. You know, I must tell you, and Ben mentioned how many tie-breaking votes I've cast as vice president. But I got to tell you, the one I'm proudest of was the day I was able to cast the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate to allow states to defund Planned Parenthood. And President Donald Trump signed it into law. So we've stood for life. And from day one, this president has also stood strong for what's come to be known as our first freedom. That is religious freedom, enshrined in our Constitution. Early on in our administration, the president took steps to free up the pulpits of America. We believe that the freedom of speech should not end at the front doors of our churches, synagogues, and houses of worship. And President Donald Trump stopped enforcement of the Johnson Amendment and restored the freedom of speech. The leaders of faith. We've also taken steps to respect the conscience rights of doctors and nurses and teachers and religious charities all across America. And it was this president and this administration that ended the assault on the little sisters of the poor, and the Supreme Court made it permanent just weeks ago. It's remarkable to think that a group of nuns have taken a lifetime vow of poverty to support and help the underserved community were hauled into court when Joe Biden was vice president for the sole purpose of requiring them to compromise their faith to live under the strictures of Obamacare. The Supreme Court actually voted by 7-2 to make permanent the efforts to conform the Little Sisters of the Poor to Obamacare. But Joe Biden has already announced that if elected president, he'll reimpose the Obamacare mandates on the Little Sisters of the Poor and on religious institutions. And his own running mate actually attacked one of our judicial nominees for being a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus. So let me just say, these attacks on the freedom of religion must stop in America, and with 4 more years, we will stand for the religious freedom of every American of every faith.